Alright, people, what's going on? It is your boy, Hopeless Knicks Fan 21. And in my recap video yesterday of the Knicks versus OKC, I said at the end in a joking manner, but being all serious, that in today's recap video, I was going to be mad and ranting and raving because we were going to lose to the Nets. However, I didn't think it was going to be that kind of loss we had. I was expecting and anticipating about a 30-point blowout and getting completely mopped all over the floor there at the Barclays Center. Excuse me. And oh my goodness. It looked like that early. Like early on in the game. The Knicks were playing like no defense. I mean, James Harden was just tearing us apart on that pick and roll. He was literally either scoring or assisting on every single pick and roll. And early on for the Knicks, it wasn't like their offense was bad because they were right in the game. And at one point, they took the lead early in the first quarter. They were up about 19-11 before the Nets really went on their massive run. And guys like Kyrie and James Harden and Jeff Green and Joe Harris were just on the money all game long. And the Nets are especially dangerous with those guys playing well. Obviously, when a Kyrie and a Harden play well, they're going to be hard to beat. But when DeAndre Jordan is getting rebounds and Nick Claxton is getting dunks easily and Jeff Green is just scoring at will, and Jeff Green was playing great defense on Julius Randle as well, which we have to add there. And then they have Landry Shamet and Joe Harris hitting shots and Tyler Johnson. And, everybody's forgetting that they're missing one crucial piece that can put them over the top. And it's not Blake Griffin, obviously, because he also helps. It's freaking Kevin Durant. You're missing one of the greatest scorers of all time in the NBA. Like, literally, one of the greatest offensive shooters. Well, offensive shooters. Yeah, of course, he's one of the best shooters we've probably seen in our era. But getting back to the game, it's early on, and you're seeing that the Nets are making these warrior-like runs where they just put up points in like 2 or 3 minutes, and you're down 20, and you're like, what the hell happened? And it happened a couple of times. The Knicks bench was just brutal today, or they were brutal yesterday, and kind of the problem was that Emmanuel quickly had to go into the starting lineup, and so they really didn't have his bench production. And again, we're missing Derrick Rose vitally missing Derrick Rose, and his presence, his veteran leadership is so valuable towards the end of a game. But especially his driving ability and his scoring, as I keep mentioning, and even to a lesser degree in Elfrid Payton, who, although I personally think he's too inconsistent, he's still valuable on the defensive end. So you're going into halftime. James Harden almost has a triple-double. Kyrie Irving misses maybe one shot. The Nets were shooting about 64%, and the Knicks were shooting 35%. And if I told you that the Knicks shot 35% against the Nets at half, and the Nets shot 64% against the Knicks, you'd probably say it's like a 30-point blowout. They were only down 12 at halftime, which was a moral victory to me because we weren't getting blown out by the goddamn Nets. But this game had a feeling of that. It was like, especially from a Knicks standpoint, you're like, okay, we're getting close, but we're not quite getting over the hump. They're pushing some big lead, but they're not quite getting that aggressive lead. And in the first half, the Knicks, really, their defense wasn't great. Like, I'm going to be honest, their defense wasn't great. They weren't switching, and just poor overall communication. But the second half starts, and the thing that just kept happening again and again and again was the Nets were making their run, but the Knicks were not dying. They were not quitting on the game, which is just a testament to Tom Thibodeau and the job he's done to instill in these guys that they actually believe that they can beat anybody and that they're not down in any game, which is very difficult because, sometimes you just know, like, hey, The other team's better than us. They're gonna outgun us. Like, we can't beat them. These guys really, I think, believe that, hey, we can beat these mother effers. And they were just going at it and at it and at it. And again, at some point in the third quarter, they were down about 12, and it just kept being that they were down 12, down 14, down 18, and I'm thinking, all right, the Nets are going to hit this big Warriors like run and end us and end us and end us. But they just didn't do it. Like, they weren't quite doing it. And eventually, the fourth quarter comes around, and the Knicks cut into the lead and make it a single-digit lead. And I'm thinking, oh my god, we actually have a chance to win this game. And kudos to guys like Reggie Bullock, who was playing. Reggie Bullock last night, and Reggie gets a lot of flack from Knicks fans because he's so inconsistent with his shooting. But his value is obviously on the defensive end, and he did a very solid job on James Harden. And he was holding it down as much as he could, along with other guys like Alec Burks, who's trying his best, and Frank Ntilikina. I know he didn't have any points, but my god, his defense, and although they scored on him a bunch, Harden scored on him, Kyrie scored on him, he was making it difficult. He had some strips almost. He was making it hard for the Nets to score. And the thing I noticed about the Nets is when they played really well yesterday, but the thing that almost got them was Kyrie and James Harden started to kind of isolate more because the Knicks were switching. And I think they need to be aggressive on pick and rolls and just continue to attack and dish. Because they were just getting easy shots. Because it's very hard to contain those two. But Tibbs did a very good job of kind of, first of all, making Knicks guards go over screens and switching occasionally. But, Frank was getting over screens. Quickly was getting over screens. But, you're getting towards the end of the quarter and the Knicks have cut the lead to about, 4. And you're thinking, holy crap, are they going to take the lead? Are they going to tie the game? And another critical thing, there's a couple of, key notes here from this game. The first one is the Knicks' never die attitude is just astonishing and amazing. The second thing I would say is, man, they had so many opportunities to take advantage of the Nets missing and the Nets blunders. Because the Nets had some blunders, definitely. Alec Burks, towards the end of the fourth quarter, before what inevitably happened, that I'll talk about, Alec Burks had an open 3 in the corner, he misses. Reggie Bullock had an open 3 in the corner, he misses. Frank Ntilikina had a couple of open 3s, he misses. RJ Bear gets a mid-range pull-up, and a wide open. These are all wide open shots. A couple of them slightly contested, but still, you get some open looks. They missed them. And it was those things that eventually did the Knicks in, because if you hit those shots, then you put pressure on the Nets, which, with Kyrie Irving and Harden, doesn't really mean anything, because those guys are so good at scoring, it doesn't matter. But missing those shots was critical to the game. And you miss a 3 one way, and the Nets get one the other way, and it goes from a 4 to 7 point game. And that's what kept happening. But they kept fighting until the end. And the brilliance of Tom Thibodeau, I will keep mentioning it because I just can't believe how well this team played. There's only about, 40 seconds left in the game, and the Knicks are trapping hard. They force 2 jump balls, win both of them, score on both of them, and they cut the lead to 3, and then they get the ball back. And before I say anything, I saw everybody was saying on Twitter, everybody was talking about what happened. And I'm going to talk about it too because it's important. Now look, from all the kudos, all the credit I've been giving to the Nets, to the Knicks, because again, you got to give them credit, they played great. God, that end, the end to that game, and I will say before I talk about Julius Randle and that call, we'll say, the travel they called on him, the refs last night were really off. On especially on some of the Knicks. This is gonna sound like bias, obviously. There's some bias to it, obviously. I can be honest. Frank Ntilikina got some foul calls that I thought were not justified. Especially the one where he fouled out. I mean, Kyrie Irving is tripping over himself, and they called a foul on Frank. Now, they didn't have a replay on it, so maybe I missed it. Maybe Frank did hold him. I'm not sure. To me, it looked like he just tripped, and they called a foul. But, and this is what I talked about in my Dear NBA Fix Your Product video. How are you supposed to guard a guy like a Kyrie Irving or a James Harden if you can barely touch them? I think you should be able to slightly hold them. I'm not saying NFL full-on grab and throw them down on the floor. You have to be able to contain them, because if you're not allowed to do that, then they're gonna drop 30 freaking points every night. It's not fair. And there were some extremely ticky-tacky calls on Frank last night that just irritated me. And also, there was one time Frank stripped the ball from Kyrie. Him and Kyrie are pushing for the ball. They called the foul on Frank. And then Kyrie loses the ball on one other possession, and him and RJ are fighting for the ball. Or no, actually, Kyrie stripped RJ the ball. They're pushing each other. And they call the foul on RJ. You can't freaking call it fair down the line is what I'm trying to say. God, I can't even say my words, how annoyed I am at that. And that's the thing. Unfortunately, the refs are going to be off some nights. And those are ticky-tack. Maybe those calls are justified, but the last call really just ruined the entire game. So first of all, let me get this straight. You have this review system, which you're supposed to make the right call. You're supposed to call it right down the line. Hey, if we mess up something, we can go back to the review and check it out. They took 35 years to get the jump ball right. They got it right after Tibbs challenged it. But you have Julius Randle going up for a shot. Kyrie blocks the shot. And everybody put the rules up. I think everybody knows the rule. Julius Randle had a right to go down and dribble and take another shot. They called the travel on him. And Scott Foster doesn't even go back and review it. There's 3 seconds left in the game. And people are going to say, oh, had they won the tip, they wouldn't have been able to score anyways. You never know in the NBA. There's crazy things have happened. We've seen insane things happen throughout the entire course of the NBA. Remember when Jeremy Lamb hit the freaking 65-footer to win the game with 0.5 seconds? Anything can happen. You took away a chance for the Knicks to tie the game. And would they have won in overtime? I don't know. Probably not. Okay? Would they have made the shot? Who knows? No, maybe not. They would have maybe still lost. But removing our opportunity to do that is the thing that's extremely frustrating. And it sucks. And Julius Randle had a right to be pissed. However, complaining about it is not going to get anything done. Unfortunately, this is what happens in the NBA sometimes. The refs are off nights. And you can't use that as an excuse. Now, if the Knicks don't make the playoffs by one game, then there's some beef there. But it is how it is, unfortunately. The refs thought he traveled. They don't get the ball back. We lose the game. Overall, though, I'm very, very happy with that game, because it showed to me that this team, they're outmanned, they're outgunned, they're injured, they're still going to fight hard, they're still going to play hard. Now, my only concern is, are they going to play like that every night? Because if they play like that every night, they could beat anybody. Now, most nights they're not going to beat teams like Philly and Brooklyn because they're just so much better than them, but they have a chance. So, overall, very happy with the game. It was a fun game to watch. It was exciting. I'm so proud of the Knicks. There's no moral victories in the NBA, obviously, but as a fan, to see teams before that would have rolled over and died when they were down 18 to an elite team like the Nets, they didn't. They fought hard the entire game. And that was refreshing to see. And hopefully it continues tonight. And, even if the team doesn't make the playoffs, I love this group of guys. They just play so hard. They work so hard. They're fun to watch, like I keep mentioning. And it's refreshing to be watching great basketball for the Knicks because it's been so long. It really has been. So overall, a good game. Knicks come up short. Regardless of controversy, if you want to say, it happens. You got to get over it. You got to move on to the next game. And, we'll see what happens tonight in Philadelphia. So hopefully I come on tomorrow and I'm excited about a win. We will see. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for tuning in to the game recaps here for the Knicks.